Hello everyone, I am Dr. Bhuvaneshwari from Zoology Department, Bishop Weber College, Trichy. In this session, we are going to discuss about the mouthparts of insects. Let us see in brief about insects. The insects, which is a small tiny organism, but it takes place a greatest and a longest fascinating evolutionary history on the earth. Insects will always play a major role in this environment. It is considered as a great pollinator for the plants, and they are a good food resources which is protein rich for all kinds of higher orders and higher classes of animals, and they involve in major composition, mean decomposition, and finally these insects are involved in seed dispersal. Now let us see the animal classification. So this is about the taxonomical classification of insects. As even though it is small, tiny, they belong to the kingdom Animalia, and it belongs to the phylum Arthropoda. In the phylum in invertebrates, about 70% of the organisms come under this Arthropoda phylum, and it belongs to the class Insecta. So among the arthropodians, Insecta class is the vast class where you can see more small number of tiny insects all over the world, and unfortunately most of them are still not in this universe, and morely there are 33 orders will be present in this class Insecta. Now let us see about the important orders, some major important orders in the class Insecta. The first is called as Hymenoptera, second is Diptera, third is Lepidoptera, fourth is Coleoptera, fifth is Dermatoptera, sixth is Mantodiae, and the seventh is Orthoptera. So the Hymenoptera, the body consists of three distinctive characteristics, and they are divided into three distinctive segments. For example, they live in colonies, and honeybees is one greatest example for this. And next is Diptera. Diptera is a true insect where they consist of a pair of flying wings, and the other pairs of wings are rudimentary, which helps for the balancing. So the animal like flies comes under this order. And third is Lepidoptera. So this is the one of the second largest orders in the class Insecta. A lot of butterflies comes under Lepidoptera, and which consists of four wings, and the fourth order, major order, is Coleoptera. So all sort of beetles which will anchor the body of the insect. So a lot of beetles and wasps come under this. And the next is Dermatoptera. So the animal is short, tiny. At the tail end of this organism, they have a pin-like structure called a serae. So this is Lepidopteran, where you can see the airwigs. And Mantodiae, it's beautiful, a triangular head, and always commonly called as praying mantis. So the animal's head is triangular in shape, and they are called as praying mantis. The last is Orthoptera. So they have scaly body or feathery body, and this is an example called as locust. Now let us move on to the basic mouth parts. As this is an arthropod and the class Insecta, all these mouth parts, they have a lot of appendages, a group of appendages which form together as a mouth part. So these appendages are around the mouth, and the mouth parts, the true insects they consist of a mouth parts which is just protruded outside the head. So they consist of 5 different type of appendages. One is labrum, next one is mandible, third is maxilla, and the fourth one is labium, fifth is called as hypopharynx. This labrum is called as the upper lip, and mandible or the side jaws, and maxillae are simple papilla-like structure. The labium is called as the lower lip, and hypopharynx is nothing but the tongue of the insect. Now let us see about the types, the various types of mouth parts which is present in the insects. In general, out of all these organisms, in general, there are 5 different types of mouth parts are there. One is biting and chewing, next one is chewing and lapping, third is piercing and sucking type, and fourth is sponging type, and fifth is siphoning type. So let us see about the biting and the chewing type of the mouth parts. This mouth part is like a primitive kind where the animal can chew their food and it helps to swallow it, like as how we human beings are taking food. Generally roaches, cockroaches, grasshoppers, termites and all sort of insects which belongs to this type of chewing type, and they will pinch off the food, they will chew the food, they will masticate the food nicely and they will swallow. So this is the major type of my biting and chewing type. And let us consider about each and every part of this biting and chewing type. Labrum, which already we have discussed, it is called as the upper lip. So they have been attached to a clypeus, which is the upper plate of the mouth, and that forms a membrane like structure, and that will give a total front position or the upper lip of this animal. And they form a roof of the oral cavity, and it is bilobe like structure. So this helps to cover the oral cavity, and also this labrum which helps to keep the food right in position. And now let us move on to the next structure called as mandible. The mandible is hard structure and they are jaw like structure which is called as the primary jaw or true jaw, where you can see on the either sides of the mouth parts, and they are triangular plate like structures. You can see the triangular structure, and the inner side of the triangles consist of serrations called as teeth. So this helps in cutting, and there are 2 types of scissors or teeth. One is called as the cutting teeth and another one is called as the grinding teeth. So this mandible which helps to grind the food nicely. And next one is called as maxillae. So this is the secondary jaw which is a paired jaw. So the previous mandibles and maxillae both are in the paired structures. So they will move sideways, and this will direct the food inside the mouth. So they consist of 2 types of podites. One is called as exopodite and another one is called as endopodite. So the exopodite are 2 lobed named as gallia and lacina, and they have taste buds and also consist of maxillary pulp which is tactile in nature. Now let us move on to the labium, the lower lip of an insect. So the labium, they have a partial fusion of the secondary maxillae. So they are consisting of 3 different types of segments. One is submentum, next one is mentum, and third one is called as the prementum, where the prementum, they bears 2 labial pulps. These 3 are joined in structure, and the outer part of the lobes is called as paraglossae, and the inner part of this lobe is called as the glossae. So both these pairs will be fused together to form a lingula like structure. And the hypopharynx, which exactly means the tongue of this insect. So these hypopharynx, they lies inside the buccal cavity, and also the salivary glands which will locate beneath to that of this buccal cavity. So they will be helpful to relish the food of this animal. And epipharynx is nothing but the outside, they will form a membrane like structures, and it forms a lining under the substratum. Now let us move on to the next type of insect. It is called as the chewing and the lapping type. Most probably this animal is otherwise called as this type of mouth parts. They consist of a spoon-like structure on the front of their oral cavity, and mostly honeybees and wasps, so they belong to this category. The labrum as well as the mandibles, as what we have discussed in the previous slides, so they will exactly look like that. But the mandibles which we are here, we can see here is smooth and it looks like a spatula. So this spatula will help to mix the wax. They can rebuild the wax, and with the help of the spatula they can construct the comb structure for their nest or the hive. and the lacinae is absent for this animal. The galleae is also elongated, and it is a slight blade-like structure, and most probably the maxillary pulp which is present inside the organism is vestigial. The paraglossae are greatly reduced in structure. The glossae are united and they form a retractile like lingula, and finally they will terminate into a labellum which exactly looks like a spoon. So this is called as the honey spoon. And now let us move on to the piercing and sucking type. So piercing is putting a hole on any object, and sucking is just extracting from that. So the piercing and sucking type of this insect, usually this will be helpful to puncture any object, most probably to puncture the plant materials to get the sap from the plants, as well as the blood from the animals, to puncture the skin of the animal to suck the blood. So this type is peculiar. You can see it in mosquitoes and many sorts of bugs. But now here we are going to see about the two different type of mouth parts again here. One is called as dipterous and another one is called as hemipterous. So let us see about the dipterous mouth parts here, the sucking type, piercing and sucking type of mouth parts, and you can see it in a mosquito where the labium is still elongated, it is flexible, and also it's fleshy. And at the mid they have a groove like structure which is called as, which consists of a protective tubule. It's called as proboscis. So the labrum is fused with the epipharynx, and most probably the labrum, epipharynx, mandibles, maxillae and the hypopharynx all together will form a styles. So this style is nothing but they are a needle like structure, and this needles will be helpful for this animal to pierce inside any object. And the hemipterous mouth part is bit different from the previous one of the dipterous, though they will be found in the bugs, and most probably the labium forms three jointed rostrum like structure. So where you can see the three joints here, and the styles which consist of in numbers 2 mandibles and 2 maxillae will be present. So the styles are just 4 in numbers. All these labial parts, the maxillary pulps are absent in this organism. Now let us go for the sponging type. It's sponges, the lowermost part of this animal is in the form of sponges. Most probably you can see in housefly. So this housefly, they will have a modified structure in their mouth part called as sucking the liquid food. So they have to suck the liquid from the food. So that is, the mandibles is absent. They have a maxillary pulp, but it is made up of a very single piece, and the labium is modified in the form of a proboscis, and proboscis they have a grooved labium, which labrum, epipharynx, where they will form an enclosing food canal, and hypopharynx, it is forming a salivary canal. So all will be present here, and at the end of the proboscis you can form a suction structure, a disc or a pad like structure which will be helped to observe the liquid content from the food, and that is called as labellum. And the final type is called as siphoning. So this is quite interesting structure where it works on, so the front structure is split bit rolled again once if it is re-rolled and it is rolled again. So this type of siphoning type will be found in the butterflies and moth. For example, they will be used to suck or used to collect the nectars as well as the flowers from the flowers and fruits, juices from the flowers and the fruits. Mandibles and labrums are completely reduced here, and the labium is represented by a triangular plating bearing with the labial pulps. So a pair of galleae will be found here, and two galleae will be joined together to form a slender like structure. So they will form a hollow tube called as proboscis. And this proboscis is slight coiled up, as I have introduced very earlier. It is slight coiled up. When it is not in use, they will coiled up, and when there is in use, they will uncoil the structure and they will go for the food. So that's all about today's class. Thank you.